Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in Hungary on his first trip to Europe since the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest over his conduct of the war in Gaza. Hungary is a member of the ICC, but Prime Minister Viktor Orban has vowed to ignore the arrest warrant. Netanyahu's trip comes as Israel is stepping up its military operations in Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says an Israeli airstrike on a UN building on Wednesday killed 19 people, 9 of them children. The Israeli army says it targeted a militant center at the UN building located in Jabalia refugee camp.
This is what Israel's expansion of operations looks like in Gaza. People were going about their day-to-day lives at this former UN clinic housing hundreds of displaced Gazans. Moments later, an Israeli airstrike hit the building.
They fired 2 missiles without prior warning. My mum was cooking on fire over there. A child was playing in the alley. People who've done absolutely nothing to Israelis. They ended up being bombed, massacred, left without heads or legs. There were just body parts of children who did nothing to Israelis.
Israel says it will seize parts of the Palestinian territory, and its intensified operations are intended to pressure Hamas to release Israeli hostages.
The IDF is seizing territory, striking terrorists, destroying infrastructure and taking other actions. We will take control of the Morag corridor. This will be a second Philadelphia corridor. We are now dissecting the Gaza Strip and increasing pressure step by step so that Hamas will return our hostages. The more they refuse, the more the pressure will increase until they do.
Around 100,000 people have been displaced in recent days from the southern city of Rafah, where Israel has expanded its operations. According to the UN, no supplies have entered Gaza for a month. Israeli pressure on Hamas is taking a heavy toll on Palestinians caught in the conflict.
It seems the Israeli Prime Minister will not stop his war on Gaza until we are displaced. But despite everything happening to us and all the anguish, despite being displaced 8 times, we will remain steadfast and resistant on our land. We will not migrate.
The United Nations say since last month's collapse of the ceasefire, over 1,000 people have been killed in Gaza. UNICEF calls it the most dangerous place in the world to be a child.
Let's bring in journalist Karim El-Kavari in Cairo for more on this. Karim, Benjamin Netanyahu has talked about setting up a new security corridor in Gaza to increase pressure on Hamas. What is this corridor and how does it force Hamas to return hostages?
Well, it's basically what they call the Morag corridor. This is a line between Rafah and the most extreme south of the Gaza Strip and the next Palestinian city of Khan Yunis, a similar corridor as they already did in the middle of the Gaza Strip, separating the Gaza Strip into 2 pieces. This will separate the extreme south of the Gaza Strip from the rest. And what is also very important, I think, it will separate the Karam Shalom crossing, where until recently most of the aid came in from the rest of the Gaza Strip. Of course, mentioning that since the 2nd of March, no aid is coming in at all because of the complete Israeli blockade. It's basically the idea is to take more territory to create pressure. An Israeli official said that by now their goal is to conquer about 25%, a quarter of the territory of the Gaza Strip within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And Israeli right groups, Yisha, saying that already now the Israeli army is occupying about 17% of the Gaza Strip, mainly on the outskirts as buffer zones. Israeli Channel 4 says this is a strategy to encircling Hamas, shrinking its territory, and apply maximum pressure.
Can you talk a bit more about the current aid situation in Gaza?
Well, there is zero, and it is really zero aid coming in since the 2nd of March. When you talk to aid organizations, they're becoming increasingly desperate inside. Their stocks are completely depleting. They used, of course, the former ceasefire to bring their stocks up a little bit. But now, since more than a month now, nothing coming in, it becomes increasingly desperate. Not only the food situation, but also if you talk to doctors in the hospitals, all the stocks are seriously declining.
And there are also now media reports that Hamas has rejected Israel's latest proposal for a truce in Gaza. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, I think you need to put this into context. First, you need to understand that there was a ceasefire deal agreed by all sides, and we were supposed to now be in the second phase of the ceasefire. And this second phase of the ceasefire would have meant the release of all hostages for a full withdrawal of the Israeli army and really a permanent ceasefire, meaning the end of the war. Netanyahu was not ready to negotiate this second phase. Instead, they resumed the Israeli offensive. And now, first, we had a new proposal from the negotiators, basically saying, suggesting the release of 5 hostages, Israeli hostages, in exchange for several hundred Palestinian prisoners. And then immediately a talk on a permanent ceasefire and the Israeli withdrawal. And now we have an Israeli counter proposal suggesting 10 hostages to be released in exchange for several Palestinian prisoners for a 40-day truce. And most importantly, the refusal to withdraw and to demand the disarmament of Hamas as a condition. That is by now, of course, rejected by Hamas as an Israeli attempt to derail any negotiations.
Thanks for putting all that into context for us. Journalist Karim El Ghavari in Cairo. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.